They laughed at the elderly couple for building an underground house. After retirement, Elijah and Ruth Coleman got bored of doing nothing. Their children had moved out. Lonely and having a sense of being left behind, they started building an underground house. Neighbors laughed at them. Even their children said they lost it. But when the storm hit, they were the only ones that were prepared, and what they did next shocked everyone. Before we continue, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. After retirement, the house grew quiet in a way that felt heavier each week. Mornings came without urgency. Afternoons stretched. The elderly couple moved through their days slowly, not from weakness, but from having nowhere urgent to be. Their children were gone. The phone rang less. The walls listened more than they spoke. They began with small routines, sweeping the porch, fixing loose boards, sitting side by side in the evenings, hands resting close but not touching, watching weather reports they no longer needed for work. Storms seemed harsher now. Power outages lasted longer. News anchors spoke about grid failures, with calm voices that did not match the footage. One morning, the husband stood in the yard with a measuring tape. He pressed the metal into the soil, pulled it back, wiped dirt onto his jeans. His wife watched from the steps, arms folded, nodding once. No dramatic talk, just a shared look that carried a decision already made. They started digging. At first, neighbors assumed it was a garden project. Someone joked about potatoes. Someone else asked if they were finally taking up a hobby. The couple worked quietly. Shovels bit into earth. Buckets filled. Dirt piled near the fence. They rested often, hands on knees, breathing steady, then continued. When wooden supports appeared, curiosity shifted to laughter. People slowed their cars. A woman across the street leaned toward another and shook her head. A man walking his dog muttered that old age made people strange. The children called, concerned, asked questions that sounded like advice, suggested rest, suggested stopping. The couple listened politely. Then they went back outside. They studied manuals at the kitchen table, old notebooks filled with neat handwriting, ventilation sketches, load calculations. The husband double-checked measurements. The wife tested materials with firm taps, listening to the sound. They reinforced walls, installed supports. Every step followed logic, not fear. By the fourth month, complaints surfaced. Someone claimed the digging looked unsafe. Another whispered about obsession. The couple smiled when spoken to, nodded, then returned to work. Snow forecasts grew sharper. The couple added shelves underground, labeled boxes, checked generators by hand. One evening, the wife paused at the yard's edge and looked at the sky. Clouds gathered low and slow. She brushed dirt from her palms, went inside, and wrote the date in a notebook. By late autumn, the hole in the yard no longer looked temporary. Concrete cured in clean lines. A low steel hatch sat flush with the ground, dull and unremarkable. The couple moved with quiet purpose. They woke early. The husband checked seals with slow pressure from his thumb. The wife wiped condensation from vents and listened for changes in pitch. Weather alerts grew frequent. Wind advisories became warnings. The couple adjusted their routine. Groceries came in smaller trips. Shelves downstairs filled with labeled bins. Rice, water, medical kits. Spare batteries counted twice. The wife tested a radio, turned the dial, waited through static until a voice came through, then turned it off again. Neighbors noticed the pace. Laughter softened into irritation. A man complained about property values. Someone filed a report that went nowhere. The couple answered questions calmly. No speeches. No defense. They returned to their work. Their children visited once, standing in the yard with crossed arms. The son asked why they were doing this. The daughter said it felt extreme. The husband knelt to tighten a bolt. The wife brushed soil from her sleeve. She said only that winters were changing. Inside the bunker, systems came online. Lights glowed steady. Air moved clean. The generator started on the first pull. Then again, then again. The husband logged run times. The wife marked results in her notebook. They fixed small faults before they became problems. Snow arrived earlier than usual. A light dusting at first. Then more. The couple watched flakes collect on the hatch and melt away. They tested entry drills, timed movements, practiced closing procedures without rushing. Each motion became familiar. Across the street, someone joked less. Another neighbor stopped watching altogether. Silence replaced commentary. The couple felt it, but did not react. They ran inspections like a habit, not a ritual. The husband traced cables with his fingers, stopping where insulation felt warm. He replaced a connector without comment. The wife tested the water filter, poured a cup, watched it settle, then drank. Cold settled deeper. Pipes in nearby houses began to burst. A neighbor knocked one afternoon, asking casual questions that leaned toward concern. The couple answered briefly. When the door closed, the wife slid the deadbolt and exhaled through her nose, slow and controlled. They stocked extra blankets and simple tools. A splint, bandages, heat packs. The husband sharpened a blade, wiped it clean, stored it away. The radio warned of a major system forming. Roads might close. Response times could stretch. The couple moved downstairs more often. The house above stayed ready, but unused. Boots lined up. Coats hung within reach. They slept lightly. When wind pressed against the walls, the wife opened her eyes and listened. The husband checked the clock and stayed still. By the end of the month, the forecast shifted tone. Words like severe and prolonged replaced mild. The couple sealed the last panel. The husband tightened the hatch until the latch clicked firm. The wife stood beside him, rested her hand on the metal, and counted to 5 before lifting it again. The storm arrived overnight without drama, then refused to leave. Snow fell thick and wet, driven sideways by wind that rattled windows and bent trees until branches snapped under the weight. By morning, the street was unrecognizable. Cars sat buried to their mirrors. Power lines sagged, then went dark. The couple did not rush. They moved with the calm of people following a plan already practiced. The wife packed the last items into a bag, checking nothing twice because everything had been checked before. The husband pulled on his coat, paused, then turned the thermostat down. Habit, not hope. They sealed the house and stepped outside. Snow reached their calves. Wind burned their faces. The hatch waited beneath a clean layer of white. The husband brushed it clear with his forearm. The wife steadied him as he lifted it. Cold air rushed upward, sharp and loud, then vanished as they descended and sealed the door behind them. Inside, the bunker felt steady. Lights held. Air flowed. The radio crackled with broken updates. Grid failures. Emergency crews overwhelmed. Roads impassable. The couple listened without comment. Hours passed. Then came the first knock. It was faint at first, barely cutting through the storm. The husband looked at the wife. She nodded once. He opened the hatch carefully. A neighbor stood shaking, face pale, hands bare. His words came out uneven. Furnace failed. Pipes burst. His wife could not feel her fingers. They brought them down, gave them blankets. Warm drinks poured slowly so hands would not shake. The wife checked fingers for color. The husband adjusted airflow. Another knock followed. Then another. By nightfall, the bunker held more people than planned, but still within limits. The couple tracked numbers quietly. They assigned corners. Children sat close to parents. Someone cried without sound. The wife moved through the space, touching shoulders, adjusting coats, making eye contact. The husband handled logistics. Water measured. Food portioned. Generator load monitored. Above them, the storm worsened. Snow collapsed roofs. Sirens faded into silence. The radio reported delays without timelines. A man arrived carrying oxygen tanks, breath short, eyes wide. The wife cleared space. The husband secured power to the machine. They worked without urgency, but without pause. Days blurred, Light cycles replaced clocks. The couple rotated tasks. They slept in shifts. The wife cleaned a cut on a teenager's leg, hands steady despite the cold. The husband splinted a wrist, using tools pulled from a labeled box. He tightened straps, tested movement, nodded. Tension rose, then settled. People learned the rhythm. Voices lowered. Children played quiet games. The bunker smelled of metal, fabric, and warm air. The couple listened constantly. To the hum of systems, to breathing, to silence. One night, the wind howled so hard it pressed against the bunker walls. Dust fell from a seam. A woman gasped. The husband checked gauges. All green. He tapped the wall once. Solid. The wife met his eyes and stayed seated. Weeks passed. Supplies thinned but held. The couple adjusted portions without announcement. No one argued. Gratitude replaced fear in small ways. A neighbor folded blankets without being asked. Someone fixed a loose panel. The bunker became less like a shelter and more like a shared effort. When the storm finally weakened, it did so slowly. The radio confirmed what the couple already sensed. Wind dropped. Snowfall lightened. Silence returned, heavy and unfamiliar. The husband unlocked the hatch but did not open it yet. He waited, counted breaths, then lifted. Cold air rushed in, clean and sharp. Light spilled down. The wife climbed first, shielding her eyes. What they saw above ground would change how the neighborhood spoke to them forever. The yard looked scraped raw. Snowbanks stood higher than fences. Roofs sagged or lay caved in. Windows were dark, some shattered, some iced shut from the inside. The street carried a silence that felt embarrassed, as if it remembered how loud it had been before the storm. One by one, people climbed out of the bunker. They moved slowly, stiff from weeks underground. Some stared at their houses without speaking. Others covered their mouths with gloved hands. The wife stood near the hatch, steadying those who needed help. The husband scanned the surroundings, eyes tracking damage, already assessing what could be fixed and what could not. Word spread fast, not through phones, through footsteps, through neighbors calling out names. People who had not knocked during the storm now came closer, looking at the hatch as if it had not existed before. Someone whispered that it had saved lives. Another corrected them, said it had been planned to. Emergency crews arrived days later, tired and behind schedule. Inspectors walked the property, boots crunching through packed snow. They asked questions, took notes. The husband answered plainly. The wife handed over notebooks without hesitation. Pages filled with dates, measurements, and test results. No exaggeration, no claims, just work. Neighbors avoided eye contact at first. Then they didn't. Someone brought food from a relief center and set it quietly on the couple's porch. Another offered tools. Apologies came unevenly, some spoken, some implied through help given without being asked. The couple accepted all of it the same way, calm, neutral, focused on what came next. Their children returned once roads reopened. They walked the bunker slowly, hands brushing walls, eyes tracing systems. The son stopped often, asking how this part worked. The daughter crouched near the generator, reading labels. Their tone had changed. Questions replaced concern. Respect replaced doubt. At the kitchen table, the wife laid out the notebooks again. The husband pointed to sections where design choices had mattered most. Load distribution, vent placement, redundancy. Their children listened without interrupting. Outside, officials spoke to reporters. The bunker became a reference point, a rare example of something that had worked when systems failed. The couple avoided cameras. They stayed inside, repairing small things, checking on neighbors, helping clear debris. An investor reached out through the children, then another, then more. Interest grew fast, fed by fear and proof. The children discussed options late into the night, voices low. The couple listened more than they spoke. When asked if they wanted to be involved, the wife answered first. Only if standards were followed. Only if safety came before speed. The husband added that shortcuts were not negotiable. Their children agreed without argument. Plans formed, designs refined. What had started as a personal project now carried weight. The couple insisted on revisions. They rejected early proposals. They tested assumptions the same way they always had, by running them until something failed. Around them, the neighborhood slowly rebuilt. Houses repaired, pipes replaced, roofs reinforced. People stopped calling the bunker strange. They called it smart. Some asked for advice. The wife shared what she could. The husband showed diagrams, tapping key points with a pen. The storm had stripped away laughter and left memory behind. The couple felt it in the way people paused when passing their house. Not out of fear, out of recognition. They returned to their routines, changed but intact. Morning checks, evening notes. The work was not finished. It had only expanded. The company formed quietly. No launch event, no bold promises. Just a small office, shared desks, and designs pulled straight from the couple's notebooks. The children handled meetings and contracts. The couple handled questions that mattered. What failed first? What lasted longest? What people ignored until it was too late? Demand grew faster than expected. Communities hit by the storm wanted answers, not slogans. They wanted homes that stayed warm when grids failed, shelters that did not turn into traps. The couple insisted every build be tested the same way their bunker had been, slowly, repeatedly, until numbers stopped changing. Money followed. Headlines came later. Valuations climbed past figures the couple never discussed out loud. When asked how it felt, the husband shrugged. The wife said they already knew the work mattered before anyone paid attention. They stayed involved by choice, reviewing plans, rejecting unsafe shortcuts, visiting sites during construction, boots muddy, gloves worn thin. Workers learned to listen when the couple spoke. Not because of titles, because their advice had been proven under pressure. Back home, the neighborhood changed. Houses were repaired with care, pipes insulated, roofs reinforced. The couple funded upgrades without ceremony, grants, supplies, labor. They asked for no plaques, only that people prepared better next time. Evenings returned to quiet, but it no longer felt empty. Phones rang more often. Sometimes it was a contractor, sometimes a neighbor asking for guidance, sometimes just someone checking in. One night, the wife closed her notebook and set it aside. The husband locked the bunker hatch, not out of fear, but habit. They sat on the porch, watching cold clouds move slowly across the sky. They had started with silence and doubt. They ended with proof and purpose, not because winter had forced anyone to beg, but because preparation had given them something worth opening the door for. If this story reminded you that quiet preparation beats loud doubt, stay here. Subscribe for more real stories about people who were underestimated, prepared anyway, and proved everyone wrong.